This is the Blokees G1 Optimus Prime model kit. In today's video, we're going to build it from start to finish. Not only that, I'll be doing some customization to make it look even cooler. I will also give it nice repaint using both airbrush and hand brush, which is a bit of an experiment for me because it turns out that this kit was made entirely from ABS plastic, a kind of plastic that's prone to damage when using lacquer paint. So I spent so much time researching the way to paint it without cracking or even melting the parts until I finally found the solution. And to top it off, I'll be adding some weathering effect in the end with a dry brushing technique and some other methods to give that realistic scratch up paint chipping look. So stick around because I'm going to walk you through step by step until the end. Hey, what's up everyone, Hyleo here, and today we have this G1 Optimus Prime Action Edition from Blokees, a brand that has been getting really popular lately thanks to its affordability and wide range of collection from Transformer to Evangelion, even Hatsune Miku, and many more. So I figured I would give it a try this time. Looking at the box right now, it's actually pretty big and we can see what the actual Optimus Prime will look like. Down here at the bottom, it says that you don't need a brush, a glue, or even a cutter, which I honestly doubt. Now on the back of the box, we actually got a glimpse on what we're getting here, like some color accuracy on the runner, a human system which seems like some kind of inner frame, plus exclusive accessories like the Energon X, laser cannon, jetpack, and more. And lastly, the glowing system which can light up Optimus' chest and eye. This is what I've been looking forward to the most. And up here we got some of the poses this kit is capable of. Looks clean. So now let's just open the box. Ooh, looking at the runner's plastic bag, I don't know why, but they really make it look so premium. I mean, just look at that. Anyway, let's just rip it apart. So we got 12 runners in total. That's actually quite a lot, isn't it? Taking a closer look at the runner, what I noticed immediately is how well detailed are all these parts. Just look at that. There's like some kind of custom panel line type of details which looks awesome. Take a look at this one, which I think it's for the inner frame. You got all that wiring, the structural frame, some kind of hydraulic stuff, and everything going on here. Oh my god, that's insane. Then we got the silver runner, which is pretty much detailed too. Oh, look at that face. And we got another silver runner for the grill, exhaust, and the face again. Now we have this gold parts for the matrix of the leadership, which I think it's just a yellow parts coated with some golden paint. I'm not really sure how well it's going to hold up, but we'll see. We then got a blue clear part here, mainly for the windshield and some accessory which looks great. Another clear part we got is this yellowish one, mainly for the axis, which again looks insane with that honeycomb pattern effect on it. This one is for the rifle, which will most likely end up with a huge seam line because it's just two parts sandwiched together, it seems like. We also have this dedicated runner just for the shoulder parts, and it already comes with the Autobot marking, which I think is really cool. And this is the part where all the glowing system happens. I'm not really sure how it works yet. I don't see any button or anything, just this part that looks like it's for the battery, obviously, and the light. Maybe we'll figure it out once we start building. Lastly, we got this awesome looking stand plate with some Autobot ornament here, which is really cool. Finally, we got this small sheet of sticker which has the small Bumblebee and Megatron for the communicator. Now that we've seen everything inside, let's start building it. I grabbed my all reliable single blade nipper, then cut most of the part excluding the clear part from the runner. For the clear part, I used the standard dual blade nipper. While in the process of removing the knob mark, I noticed that there are just some kinds of casting line on some parts which honestly are pretty annoying. They are just sitting there in the wide open areas where you can just literally see it, and it's quite noticeably sticking out. Not only that, but some of them are in tricky spots, like the curved area of the chest part here where the truck's headlights are, making them even harder to remove. So I start removing those casting lines with the sandpaper starting from 400 grit all the way up to 2000 grit. For those tricky areas, I need to improvise a bit, so I grabbed the sandpaper and tried to wrap it around an alligator clip for painting, you know, and just sand it like so. Additionally, I also use sanding sponge and even a raw sandpaper like so to properly clean all the casting lines and knob marks. Now that we've cleaned all the knob marks, it's time to assemble it. The building process is pretty much the same as your usual gunpla, but one thing I want to point out is that most of the connectors or the pegs are super tight. I'm not even kidding, which is great if you're just planning a straight build and putting it on the shelf. But since I'm going to repaint this, I had to trim some of the pegs so I can take it apart again later when painting. And this is what the Optimus Prime looks like straight out of the box without any extra effort. I don't know if removing those casting lines counts as an extra effort or not, but here we are. My first impression was that I think this kit has a funny proportion, like it's stuck between SD or Master Grade, but the size itself is quite big. That being said, it makes Optimus look bulkier and a bit heavier compared to the skinny one some of the toys got, which I really adore. I really love the overall look of this kit as it's filled with so many details on the surface, like on the head, which I think looks really cool here, the arm, the leg, where not only on the outside, even here on the inside is crazy with all the details, even though at the end of the day you cannot really see all of it. Like, hello? Then we have here on the backside, there's so many panel lines here laying around. On the torso we got those nice details around the windshield, and we even have a windscreen wiper here even though it's not color separated, but still it's pretty cool. What's even cooler is that we can open both these chest windows to reveal the matrix of leadership inside, which brings us to the glowing system. It turns out that this Autobot emblem is actually a magnet that switches the light on inside the chest, which then shine all the way up to the eye through the neck joint. It only lights up for 30 seconds before it turns itself off. Pretty bummer, but I think it's fine. One thing that doesn't click with me is the color of this both waist and tie unit, which is in the super metallic glossy silver. I personally think maybe darker metal color could be better instead of whatever this super glossy silver here. Or maybe we could go back to the classic white as shown in the cartoon. Maybe just me, but yeah. What I found interesting is this hinge on the arm. It actually slides a bit when you try to straighten it, which is a clever design choice that allows the arm to move like this. Pretty cool articulation. Speaking of articulation, the rest is pretty standard. You cannot really go super dynamic poses with this kit, but it can still recreate some of the iconic poses, which I think is enough. For the accessory, we got the Ion Blaster with this interesting gimmick that can be pushed back and forth like so. Then we got the Energon X, pretty standard, and this communicator hologram thingy and a laptop. No, I don't know, it's called console, which can be used on the arm like so. Lastly, we get the jetpack, which I think is way cooler than the standard one. So that's the quick overview for the Blokees Optimus Prime straight out of the box. A solid model kit as is, but there are definitely a couple of things I want to modify. And now let's start doing some customization. Starting with the leg, I want to somehow show what's underneath these blue parts, like all the wiring and stuff. It feels like such a waste when all those nice details end up covered in the end. I don't want those to be left unseen, there has to be a way to make them visible. So I grab my handsaw and start cutting through to remove the whole square section here. Then with a mini hand drill, I made a bunch of small holes to create a line so I could just somehow pry it off later. It looks a bit rough for now, so I sand all those rough edges and now it looks something like this. But I'm still not quite satisfied. Then I thought, why not just remove almost all the entire section here? With the same technique from before, I drill a bunch of holes all the way up here to the top and snap it off just like before. Now the entire part looks like this. It looks super thin, I know, but I think this will reveal a lot of the inner frame. Let's try putting it on the leg and oh my god, it looks better now, right? The cutout line looks way more natural than before, I feel like. For the front section of the leg, I did pretty much the same as before. There we go. Now that the inner frame is mostly visible, it looks much cooler. Just so you know, I'm just a casual Transformers fan, not some diehard one. I watched some cartoons like G1 Animated and Armada as a kid, plus all the live action movies. And the most recent one, the Transformers one, which I really like. That's it, I guess. While browsing for ideas, I noticed that most of Optimus Prime design have these wheels on both sides of his legs, but the one that I built doesn't have any of those. I know it's because it's supposed to be the G1 edition, but then I saw some of the G1 toy versions had them. So I feel like it would be cool if I add those kind of wheel on the side. I hope I don't ruin the design, so let's try it. So I bought this Tamiya 4-wheel drive wheel from the nearest hobby shop, which is comically big, but I think it suits perfectly for the Optimus Prime I currently built. I know this doesn't look close to a truck wheel rather than a sports car wheel, but again I think this wheel is gonna add that overall silhouette I'm looking for. So let's just open it, cut the rim and the tire from the runner, and simply insert the tire to the rim. And we got this nice wheel right here. I'm gonna use this here as a reference point to where the wheel will be, then I mark a point directly underneath it so it line up straight with each other. With a handrail, I carefully drill out each hole, making sure they line up properly so that everything is perfectly aligned. Then I attach the wheel onto the plow rod and slide it all the way through the inner frame like so. After that, I cut off the excess plow rod from the inside and secured it with a super glue so it stays firmly in place. And now it looks like this. Oh my god, it looks so cool. I really love it. The size of the wheel actually fits really nicely with the overall proportion of the leg. Next, for the silver grill on the leg, I want to remove this small section so it can reveal more of the inner frame inside. With a chisel, I carve along these lines a couple of times until it cut through the parts, and then just snap them off all together. Now it looks something like this. Not much, but yeah, I think this will do. Then for the thigh, same as before, there's this hidden detail underneath the parts which I want to reveal to. First, I sketch on how the cutout will be, then place a guiding tape all along the line, carve it with a chisel slowly and repeat it a couple times until it all comes off. Okay, this is pretty cool. The cutout turned out somewhat clean and looks natural. I really like it. Next, we got this small tire which was hidden under the inner frame from the leg. I think I'm going to place it here on the side skirt to act as a front tire of the truck. So I cut to separate these two wheel holders, leaving just this piece. Using guiding tape, I mark the center of the side skirt and drill a hole in it. Then simply attach the wheel onto it. Right now it holds in place pretty tightly, but I think I'll still glue it after painting just to be safe. Moving on to the arm section, I want to create some window to reveal the inner frame inside. I mean, look at those hydraulic pipes, there's no way I'm letting them stay hidden underneath. So I sketched out how the window is gonna be, and with the help of guiding tape, I carve it with a chisel just like earlier. Pretty much the same process as before. After that, I clean up the edges with a sandpaper and now it looks like this. For the inner side of the forearm, I want to do something a little bit different. Instead of just a small window, I decided to remove the entire section here to reveal the inner frame even more. So with a chisel, I carve out this area, leaving only a small portion here near the wrist, and then just snap it off. Since we don't really need these specs in this area anymore, I decided to remove them using a mini grinder. And here's how the arm looks now. Honestly, the inner side isn't as cool as I imagined. Something feels off. Nah, I think it's fine. We still have a huge seam line over here, but I think I'm gonna remove it while painting. Next up, I noticed that these hands have this hollow section, and the same goes for the exhaust pipe on the shoulder. Let's fix that. I grabbed some epoxy putty, mixed it evenly, and carefully filled all the hollow section with it. The finger parts are kinda tricky since they're so tiny. On top of that, the gaps between each finger are super narrow. So if the putty dries in between, I'm worried that I won't be able to sand it since the file or the sandpaper might not even fit into those gaps. So once it dried, I sand down all the excess putty using every type of sandpaper and sponge I have. For the 3 fingers, since even my small sanding board wouldn't fit, I had to improvise with other tools, like using a wider chisel to carve away the putty. And it looks pretty rough, I must say, but I think it will be fine once it's all painted. I also filled a small hollow section here on the inner side of the forearm, as you can see here. Lastly, I want to take care of the seam line. This kit doesn't have a lot of seam lines to begin with, but the most noticeable one is the rifle. A little bit tricky because the rifle itself has that push-pull gimmick, so yeah. Anyway, I grabbed the first half of the rifle and slightly separate them. Then using Mr. Cement S, I poured in as much glue as I could. I don't really mind if it's too much. I then squeezed the part as powerful as I could until you see the glue comes out like so. I then sand it like usual, and now it looks like this. When gluing the other half of the rifle, I tried to wiggle and squeeze the part at the same time to prevent the cement from melting the sliding gimmick, which I definitely don't want to happen. After that, again, I sand it down until the dried cement was smooth on the surface. And now it looks like this. I think it's perfect. Another part that has noticeable seam line are this huge backpack which pretty much 2 parts sandwiched together, and the Energon X which is the same. Okay, so that's everything with the customization. Not much honestly, right? Next, I'm going to wash all these parts with dish soap to clean all the dust and dirt, and we now move on to painting. So we have a problem here. While preparing for painting, I noticed that in the manual that this model kit was entirely built with ABS plastic. I don't know much detail about what ABS plastic is. This is my first time ever painting a full ABS kit. But what I do know is that ABS plastic is weak against lacquer paint that I usually use, the Mr. Color one. It is said that it could crack or even melt the parts. I mean, it specifically said that you probably should use water-based paint. That means it's a pretty big deal, right? Also, this Mr. Hobby marker that I recently bought has the same warning that may damage the ABS parts. So after countless hours of researching how to paint on ABS parts, I feel like I could talk about this topic for days. Oh my god. Like, some people say you should totally use acrylic or even watercolor, while others say, oh, it will be fine painting lacquer on ABS, nothing's gonna happen. But I'm not risking it. So here's the conclusion I've come to based on my personal research. The key is to use a primer first, since it's protect the part underneath it much better than a regular surfacer, which is what I usually use. The real issue isn't the paint itself, but the solvent and the thinner. I don't know if those are the same, but yeah. That's why a lot of guides online recommend painting it super slowly and letting each layer dry completely, or even wet it to cure before adding another layer when you're painting on ABS. This way, the thinner has time to evaporate, so it won't build up and penetrate the parts. Then I thought, why not just use a rapid thinner? And sure enough, I found this one article that said rapid thinner is basically safe to use for ABS parts because of their property to dry really fast. I'm gonna put a link to the article down below if you guys want to read it. That's pretty much the conclusion I got. I might be mistaken on some parts, so feel free to add additional info in the comments down below. So I'm gonna use this two, Mr. Primer Surfacer and Mr. Rapid Thinner. I begin pre-thinning the Primer Surfacer by pouring it here on the paint bottle. Next, I add the Mr. Rapid Thinner using a 1:1 thinner to paint ratio. Just to be safe, I left all these inner frame parts unpainted to avoid anything unwanted from happening, since these are the crucial parts. I start painting all the parts with this gray primer. I didn't slow down or change my approach just because it's ABS. I sprayed it like I normally would, fully trusting the rapid thinner. After that, I start painting the inner frame using a metallic black, which I think is a pretty solid color choice for it. I also paint the inside of the forearm because it seems like it will be noticeable from the outside. For this section on the chest, I used the color Steel to slightly differentiate from the inner frame. But before moving on, there's still the seam line on the forearm that we need to fix. So I applied cement and pressed the parts together until the excess cement oozed out, just like before. Then sand it down to finish it off. Ooh, look at the result, pretty clean. Then I sprayed the primer again on the same forearm with the inner frame already masked with the masking tape beforehand. I pretty much did the same treatment here on the shoulder where there was once a pretty noticeable seam line. I want to have a shading effect this time around, so I pre-shade most of the part with this German gray. I tried to spray following all the panel lines, details, and most importantly, all the edges. Moving on to the main red parts, I'm using red madder, one of my favorites. I start by focusing on the center, then gradually spray toward the edges where the pre-shades are. I tried not to spray too much over the gray so that the pre-shade doesn't completely disappear. For the blue parts, I use Mr. Color Character Blue. I chose this one because this particular color gives a slightly darker blue that looks nice on Optimus Prime, I feel like. For the thigh and waist parts, I decided to go with the cartoon version of the Optimus Prime, which is full white. So for the white color, I used the MS white. But I did keep the silver for some metallic parts, like the rims, this some kind of lining on the torso, the grills both on the torso and the legs, and of course the exhaust pipes. Meanwhile, as for the mask, I added a little bit of black to the silver to slightly darken it. Next, for the yellow parts, I used the RX-78 yellow version anime. Now for the X, this is where things get interesting. First, with orange red, I try slowly all the lines and these honeycomb-like shapes. This process really put my airbrush control to a test, oh my god. Then I paint the rest using yellow until it becomes like this. Next, I use this fluorescent orange on top of it to blend the two previous colors. It also adds a nice gradation effect on the edges. I keep going back and forth with these three colors until it just feels right. Moving on to the rifle, I just paint it with black. The same with the tire. Then for the vent-like section here, I spray it with silver. The same goes for these same things on the backpack and the thruster. Finally, for the matrix of leadership, I paint it with super gold to make it really shine. To save our progress so far, I give it a top coat using Mr. Super Clear Gloss. Now we're pretty much done with painting, it's time to go for detailing. I usually use Tamiya enamel paint for brush painting, but this time around, I'll be fully using Aqueous color, which is the acrylic base from Mr. Color. No particular reason, just want to try something different. First, I use Aqueous black for most of the details, like this thick line on the backpack and most lines on the head, and yeah, pretty much almost all the details on the surface. Next, I did some panel lines for the thinner line using Tamiya Panel Line Accent Black. Then, I used Aqueous Silver for the inner frame details, mainly brushing it over those structural frame-like parts to make them pop from the rest. I also added to other details like the hydraulic pipes and more. The same here on the rifle, I give some silver accent to it. For the cables, I use red. This one is really challenging because, just look at how thin all the cables are here. This process really tests my patience. And finally, for the rest of the details and accent, I use Aqueous Gold. The most noticeable one are the other halves of the hydraulic pipe here, both on the leg and the forearm. And now the inner frame basically looks like this. Oh my god, it's really cool, right? All the details can be seen now. It's not the cleanest one because some of the brush strokes are still visible, but I think it's still great. I feel like the downside of brushing with aqueous is that it's almost impossible to erase mistakes. Unlike with enamel paint, it's still possible but way harder than enamel. So yeah, you'll notice some paint bleeding here and there. But on the flip side, once you get the mix right, I find it so much easier to paint compared to enamel, especially on a wider area. Now, what I want to add is this Autobot logo since we lost one during the painting. I found this on the marketplace, which turned out is a dry transfer decal. Let's cut one, adjust the position of the decal on the shoulder, and gently press it until the sticker fully transfers. Then peel off the plastic and there you have it. The Autobot marking is back. And now it's time to do some weathering. I'm planning to do some dry brushing technique with these two shades of gray. So I put the paint first on the paint tray here, then with a sponge that I've cut into small pieces, I then start dabbing the sponge to get the paint from the tray. Then I dab it again, but this time on the paper towel, so that there's only a slight amount of paint left on the sponge. With only a small remaining paint on the sponge, I started dabbing it on the part like so to create some paint chipping effect. I'm mainly focusing on the edges since it's where paint chipping usually happens, but I still give some light dab on the rest of the surface. I do this on almost every part and edges while trying to keep the balance of the effects by not overdoing it. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like I kinda overdid it on some parts, or maybe even all of them, but it still looks cool though. Initially, for the secondary color, I want to use this particular light gray, but after trying it on some areas, it looks weird, like I think chipping is not supposed to look like this. So I ended up not using this gray. Instead, I used this Mr. Hobby silver marker. I don't know if this is an actual weathering technique, but what I did was rub the marker onto a needle like this, then use the needle to scratch the parts, like literally scratch it. I tried only scratch on the dark gray areas from earlier, so that it gives the sense that the scratches are deeper, if that makes sense. Honestly, I think it looks way more natural and definitely cooler. For the inner frame, I used this aqueous silver and just simply kinda swipe it with. Wondering why I didn't use the same silver paint before? I don't know, that didn't cross my mind earlier. I add another checkpoint using the top coat flat, which is important for the next step. I want to try using this for the first time. This is the Mr. Weathering color. I'm not sure what this item is properly called, like a weathering filter I guess. So I start pouring this on the paint tray, and then I apply this liquid with a brush and just spread it evenly and let it flow freely across the surface. I'm not sure at first, but I feel like I need to apply this on the whole model kit, right? And I didn't expect this to be this thin or clear, like I thought it's going to be give a more black like paint. Not sure, but I think it's working. Since this stuff is enamel based, I use a swab soak with an enamel thinner and just swipe it up and down, back and forth to create that streaking effect. Again, I'm not sure if streaking is the right word for it, but you get the idea. So after a while, I still have no idea what I'm doing now. Like, I don't see any streak, but it's there, like very subtle. Is it supposed to look like that? I mean, it's kinda there, so I guess that's it. I really like the one on the silver parts here. Like every detail pops now, which is pretty great. I didn't expect that. The same goes for these exhaust pipes here on the shoulders. And that concludes everything on the build. There's a lot going on here, but I really hope it all comes together and looks great in the end. Now it's time to reassemble the kit. First we have the torso, and whoa, look at that. I really like how the overall looks now. Like, there's so much happening here. The red with the pre-shade underneath gives it that darker tone, which I really love. Those chipping effects make it even more awesome, and the subtle streaking effects add that extra touch. The window on the chest looks more alive now. Then what I like more are the silver and this front truck grill details that now totally pop off thanks to that liquid weathering or whatever that is. The inside of the chest looks awesome too, now that it's painted mostly in this metallic black with a bunch of added details. Super cool. Next we got the matrix of leadership, which also looks really awesome. Really love how the gold turned out. Now we just put it inside like so and close the windshield back. Then we got Optimus head. This also looks amazing. I really like how the weathering effect turned out here, especially the silver scratch near his eye, which looks awesome. We also got the subtle streaking effect on his front mask, which again looks pretty cool. I really love it. So let's just put it in the torso like so. Next up is the waist unit, which I painted white instead of the silver it originally came. I feel like I kinda overdid the chipping effect here, especially on the side, but yeah. Now let's attach it to the torso. And don't forget to attach the tire on the waist unit, which adds a nice touch. Next we attach the backpack that looks clean as well. Then we have this jetpack which also looks insane. Now into the main dish, which is the leg, starting with the inner frame, which I'm most proud of. Just look at all those details from the hand brushing. I seriously cannot believe it turned out this good. Oh my god. It's not perfect, some paint did slightly bleed on the edges and I cannot really erase it. But honestly, it's still super impressive. Now let's put the cover starting from the thigh. Okay, now you can slightly see the inside, which is like exactly what I intended from the beginning. Next we put the front cover of the lower leg and look at that. Since we trimmed this grill a bit on the leg, we can now slightly see the tiny bit of the inner frame from the front. Then we add the back cover like so, and now we put the wheel back on the side and attach back the foot. Now this is what the leg finally looks like. I still cannot believe how awesome the result is with all the details and all the finish. The way how the inner frame is now visible from the side is just what I expected. The wheels also looks great on the side, right? I also love how dirty it looks now with all the weathering effects, especially here on the back side of the leg. Yeah, it's just insane. Now let's attach it to the waist part, and now we have this. Okay, so now we can see the white color on the waist and the thigh fit this entire build. I really like it. Here's another look on both of the back side of the leg, which I really love. Now moving on to the arms, we've got this cool looking Autobot marking with all the weathering effects. And then there's this small window that reveals just a bit of the inner frame, which looks super sick with those hydraulic popping out. But on the other side, you can see even more of the inner frame showing. Now we attach the hand and attach the whole arm to the torso. And finally, the Optimus Prime Blokees G1 edition is completed. Oh my god, I'm so happy how it turned out. Just look at all those details. All the paint looks and works out really well. And I didn't find any parts that cracks or even melts at all with these ABS parts. So yeah, I'm calling it a success. I really love how the minor customization we did give a nice upgrade to the overall look, especially the wheel on the leg and all the revealing inner frame here and there. The weathering also looks beautiful, even though I feel like I should be using 2 shades of color for the chipping effect, but the silver one works really well. For the gun, however, I don't know what's going on here, like you cannot add those black chipping effects because the part itself is already black, so I just gave it a couple of silver scratches. Next we have the X, which looks beautiful with that orange gradation and all. So that's pretty much it for the build this time. Now all that left to do is Autobot, transform and roll out.
Stop.
Gotta do it hella big, had to run it back again.
Stop.
Gotta do it hella big, had to run it back again. Gotta do it hella big, had to run it back again.
Stop.
Gotta do it hella big, had to run it back again. Gotta do it hella big, had to run it back again.
Stop.
So that's the entire build of the Blokees G1 Optimus Prime. Hope you guys enjoy all the build process. Let me know what you guys think in the comment down below. Consider giving this video a like and subscribe to see more in the future. See you in the next build. Bye!